welcome everyone. Today we have our world famous speaker, Professor David Smith, Mr. Nails, Professor Chin. We will discuss about deep learning. Um, First, I would like to give chance Professor David Smith.
Well, Sharif, thank you. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning, which is really just a way to look at either neural networks or optical networks or other biological networks being used to simulate the behavior of the human brain um, and allow it to learn from really very large amount of data. Uh, Deep learning drives many artificial intelligence applications. And, I hate the term AI because it's so broad, but deep learning is really a subset there, and it works by providing automation, perform analytical and physical tasks. Deep learning really lies behind many everyday products and services, such as digital assistants, voice-enabled TV, and some of the credit fraud detection, as well as being a really big part of looking at the emerging autonomous technologies, such as self-driving cars, uh, self autonomous robots, and other application like that. Uh,
Unix.
it really is an interesting view as you look at, because deep learning at the speed of light really in some of the newer domains as you look at those and how they work. Um, Deep learning also is known as deep structure learning, and it really works with something called representative learning, which goes into doing some of the other deeper elements. Uh, Deep learning architectures such as the deep neural net, the speed of light processing using photons. You have something called deep reinforcement learning. You have deep belief networks, and you have really something called a recurrent neural network that is used in many different areas. And some of these include areas like computer vision, speech recognition, natural language processing, machine translation, and used in many different product sets, such as bioinformatics, drug design, medical image, climate science, uh, material inspection. And as we heard in earlier broadcasts, it's increasingly being used with all different types of artificial mixed reality and augmented reality to really help. The the concept behind really deep learning was initially inspired by the biological processes and biological systems. And while we're seeing deep learning being driven by silicon processes, by neural networks, by optical processors, we're also beginning to see them being delivered by biological computing now. So it's applicable in many different ways. One of the emerging near-term trends is that we now can use deep learning using photons as part of the computing process. Uh, and we now have the first optical processors in place that really takes deep learning at the speed of light and pushes that forward. So, Sharif, I hope this is a quick introduction, kinds of help sets the stage. Looks like Sharif might have frozen. Neil, do you want to go ahead
Sure,
and go
yes.
your
Thank you,
opinions?
David. One of the places within deep learning and artificial intelligence that I'm most excited about is the use of the AI deep learning in the field of medicines, where they're finding different cures with different medicines that are on the market now that can be applied to other things. For example, there's been the use of metformin. It's something that's been used regularly for diabetic patients, but more recently they found that people taking metformin are also seem to be shielded from many types of cancers. So they're now looking at metformin as a method of taking metformin to avoid many types of cancers. So the idea of using deep learning AI in researching, looking at medicines and how it can be used in other areas to help people. I'm very much interested in the possibility of finding a cure for aging and finding cures for the aging process in humanity is something that I think will transform the world, transform people, bringing people to a healthier state and having a much longer life. I'd love to see us embark in that future and find that path for humanity. That's where I sit, David. Thank you.
No, that's great. I agree. Medicine and healthcare is a great application for it. Kim, you want to jump in with your thoughts?
Are you uh, are you talking to me?
Oh, why don't you go ahead and go, Dr. Kim,
Whether you
and then we'll go to Kim.
Dr. Calhoun, if you want to. Okay, well, let me give some my view on this speed of light. Okay, the speed of light means photon. Okay, so it's optoelectronic implementation. In other words, optic, all these things been discussed since 1970. But there's a problem. The interface of electronics with optical, for example, optical fiber. Okay, optic fiber is easy. It's a very long line. You just have the light go through it. But the interface, that's the problem. And I think they work out the interface problem. So now they are not only trying to use photon for communication, they try to use spin electronics to do the computation. Okay, which gives if they can be implemented into the new deep learning system with neural network, it will be a ideal situation for them. Okay, so the deep learning comes from the old AI in using expert system has actually failed. Minsky's old AI, he invented AI, but the old AI actually has failed. Now, Google come up with this vision for computer, and that allow computer to see things. Once it can see things, it can demonstrate initially by beating all the chess champions. They look at all the boards, okay, and memorize all the boards. If somebody plays some move, they just take some old boards, which they can identify. They cannot identify with expert system. They can only identify with neural network. Once they can identify that, they take all the master moves and choose one of them and play against the opponent. In that way, they can do many things in medicine, in play chess, in DNA folding. So this, the person who did the PhD thesis is Pietro Antonic, and he's the newest person who tried to give an overview of the progress of photonics. But overall, it's just a competition, okay, of all the new computer systems. And my favorite is definitely DNA computing, okay, because DNA can store so much data, and it goes along the line that Paul science, which I'm the founder, think that we should go toward the goal of self-creation. Another human being, once they can create themselves, they have satisfied the purpose of existence. You see, this is what a process. You see, there's no goals on what our existence, no purpose of existence. Okay, let me just give one purpose, which is from both sides. That is the ability to create ourselves. So, photon electron is not along that line. But I will not discourage people doing it. If they want to build a computer, use a photon, great. Okay, and this deep learning is definitely increased perception into computer. That is advancement. But it can be done by all kinds of computer, even today's digital computer. Actually, all the work done today is by digital computer. It's still, you digital computer, but it's not so direct. So they are also claiming that they can directly go to analog computing with photonics. So that will probably make another good advance. So that is the overall picture for this spintronics, speed of light, all this claim. I guess everybody claims something. David and I we agree on the DNA. That is great. Okay, so I
Thank you.
would, I think Kim
Yes.
can take over.
Yes. Yes, Professor Kim, what you want to add for today's discussion? You have experience both from industry and academy, and you have strong relation
Uh,
with media. Yes.
yeah. So first off, when I kind of missed part of the conversation, I'm sorry because I was having sound difficulties. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So when we're talking about artificial intelligence, you're also about being able to process data. And I think when you're talking about the speed of light, that is a project that I worked on back in 1993. Introduced the fiber networks, and we were operating at the speed of light on fiber, utilizing things like OC3, OC12, asynchronous transfer mode, all the broadband processing. And because when you have the use of artificial intelligence, you want it to operate very fast. We're also talking about in the time, which started many years ago, quantum computing and processing. So, but when we're talking about the speed of light, I think you're talking about the transfer of data. That is something very important because time is everything. When you're trying to save lives or just doing research and meeting that bell curve of getting the ends. So, speed of light that I am familiar with is when we introduced the world to fiber networks back in '93. It worked good in North Carolina, where I normally live in Birmingham, Alabama today, which Birmingham, Alabama actually was part of that project back in 1993. So, but Bell South Labs and Bell South Communications were here. So anyway, I just feel like this conversation is fun for me today because of all this. But in Raleigh, North Carolina, Research Triangle Park area, we had a triangle system, and we connected to various different universities, research labs, telephone companies, and we launched the first fiber network. Very expensive, but very true to what expected. The data was processing in real time. It did everything we expected, and it's lasted all these years. And to this day, very proud of it. But this is what's very important now: is being able to transfer data as fast as we can. Is the fast speed of light? I don't know. I think in science we always prove ourselves up to the next level, and that waiting for us to see what it's like. I hope that has added to the conversation that you wanted today.
Thank you. Professor David Smith, very basic question, but as our targeted audience from the youth communities, can you please differentiate in between artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning? It creates some confusion in our audience.
Well, they are all related, and you
Okay.
begin to see the differences between them as you try to get into the differences. So deep learning really distinguishes itself from classic machine learning by the type of data it works with and the methods which it uses to learn and to enhance its ability. Machine learning algorithms really leverage structured, labeled data to make predictions. And what that means is uh, it really looks at relational data that has been in there in place. And while it can take advantage of unstructured data that has begun to be pre-processed, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is excluding that. But unstructured data generally goes through some pre-processing to organize it into a semi-structured format. Deep learning eliminates the need of data pre-processing that is typically involved with machine learning. In deep learning, the algorithms used can ingest, process unstructured data like text and images, and it really automates feature extraction, which really removes some of the dependency on the human experts. And this is mimicking what we do with our brain, where we begin to see photos and we can begin to distinguish them by what they are. And deep learning algorithms can determine the features that are most important in each of them. Uh, and really, this type of hierarchy is more of a human, where machine learning is more of a different type of extremely structured, extremely relax, relational view. Uh, the one thing I'd like to jump back to on this one, though, is what Professor Ching said as well. There's, as we've talked about in the past, there's multiple types of processing you can use. You have the classic CMOS processing, which are the chips we have in most of our computers and smart devices today. Uh, you've heard us talk about quantum computing, and quantum computing has the place in doing things like math and modeling very rapidly. Then you have biological computing. I personally, and it sounds like Dr. Ching believes that biological computing is one of my favorite going forward because of the ability it has to do a lot of tasks similar at the same time and then pull them back to answer very complex problems, and it will excel at things like deep learning. You have neural networks. You have uh, optical computing. We are just now seeing the first optical chips that can be used by themselves in it. There's, as you look at optical computing, is a way to really push out the effects of Moore's law and begin to see where it can go and how it can be used there. Uh, Optical computing is fast. The problem with optical computing, and that is holding it back, though, is it is not as accurate as classical computing. Optical computing today is, with the chip that is being introduced, is at an 8-bit processing level, where most of our processing today, we're at bit counts well above that, which makes them more accurate as we go down. And we see some areas like quantum computing and biological computing and the hybrid sides of classical computing using GPU chips uh, and nanomorphic chips are pushing out that precision as well. So, true, that's some of the differences, both with the deep learning versus machine learning and some of the computer processing types that can be used around it. And each have their pros and cons. But like Dr. Ching, I really believe as we look at the future of deep learning, it's going to be the leapfrog advances are going to be made using biological or DNA and RNA strands of computing.
Thank you, Professor. My next questions, like if we can understand, if you want to understand about this neural network, what actually Professor David Smith shared with us. Mr. Neil, how you want to share about the project of neural network?
You know, there is so much coming, and there's so much happening that it's really very exciting to be living in this time. I can't speak as an expert on the neural network, but the concept of being able to interface the brain to the computer and to be able to connect in that way, something that I think Kurzweil has spoken about, Musk has spoken about, uh, to be able to connect to a brain to a computer and to be interconnected is a phenomenal advance, I think, for our species. And I look forward to seeing what's going to happen in that way, Sharif. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Professor Ching, if you give us more example on deep learning and some of the function of Fourier transformation in deep learning, if you share with our audience, maybe it will be more relevant for today's discussion. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you see, they are using electron spin to do all this calculation. So it's definitely faster than than the conventional chips. Conventional chips has this bottleneck, which is heat. Too much heat when they get to smaller and smaller. Now they probably already reached the limit of maybe 1 nanometer. You see. Very small, 1 nanometer. So basically, also I like to say this machine learning and the deep learning once for all. Let's make it clear. You see, machine learning is you can apply to the old AI expert system, and you can apply to deep learning. You see, so basically, machine learning is should not be used too much today. You should not combine the two. Okay. The difference is the old expert system, which is basically humans' analytical ability. Okay, look at today's deep learning. They use all these terms. They should use something simpler. You see. That is, it really allow machine to see things as human beings can see things. It's a perception. So it's a neural network. It's more like the human brain function. Human brain is a neural network. Okay, it got feedback system. Okay, it got a neural network. And this neural network was invented a long time ago. I remember it was in the 1970s. For 17 years, it has been ignored by the technical community. Then finally, they see that there is ARPA, DARPA. At that time, they might even call it DARPA. See that it can identify. You can put a neural network on a machine. When the machine vibrated, they see some change in the neural network. So in other words, the neural network can see that the difference in machine situation, and then they start to take notice of that. But just recently, Google applied all these things to chess playing. The idea is relatively simple, and then now it go into so much. It gets into biology, which is extremely useful for us. That is to see the alpha fold. Protein folding is one of the most difficult mathematical problem, and they can just see it. They see so this deep learning is something that's going to stay very well. Expert system has failed. Okay, machine learning doesn't, it include everything. So basically, shouldn't be used too much. Okay, so this is my basic, and also about David mentioned biological computing. Okay, one of the major advantage of biological computing is it's the most efficient way to store data. Okay, nature produced the most efficient way to store data. Okay, which will really put our technical people in a position that in an embarrassing position. You see. And what I'm trying to introduce is that the way that I guess by now after being here for so long, I need to tell you what I really think. Okay, not to say what the other people are saying. Okay, I think the entire computer science is incorrect because it's partially automated. If you write a program today, you need to update to new systems from initially it was Fortran to C to Basic to Java. You just keep going. You see now to Ruby to Rail, Ruby Rail. JavaScript. There's no end to this updating problem. And also, all of us probably every couple of years have to pay Microsoft update our Microsoft Office. Okay, all this updating is prohibitive in the future. You see, now you did not solve the basic problem. Software foundation is partially automated. It helps software people to make money, but it's going to cause a complexity crisis. So we have to turn it into a complete automated software foundation. Okay, here the beauty comes. The complete automated system is I patented. It's called complete automated and self-generating software system. It's capable of self-generating, auto documentation, auto update. The self-generating feature is extremely interesting today for the deep learning community. Because the self-generating cell, you can generate the cell after cell to unlimited number. And you can use that as all the nodes. Each node represents a computer language, so you can do a lot of things with it. Okay, each node is like a cell. It's like a language. So you can do a lot of things with it. Once you have self-generating neural network with unlimited software cell, okay, you essentially have something which parallel to the brain. Okay, but that neural network system is very difficult to think. Okay, you try to think, if you try to put things together into a neural network, it's already difficult enough. You try to tell the computer when it's self-generating how to change each cell for its own function. That would be very, very difficult. But our human being, when it's born, it has twice as many brain cells as we have now as adults. Then the brain trimmed down half of it. Okay, the number of cells remain depending on what kind of nutrition we feed to the brain. Okay, each person can only support half of the total. So pretty much we have half of the brain cells. Okay, and these cells interact with each other. If you want to do the brain, you got to go to complete automated software system. Okay, I already have a discussion on this on a website called software-cell.com. Software-cell.com. And this is what we need to go into. We need to solve our current problem first. We continue to develop more and more software. The mountain, of partially auto software will be building higher and higher. Okay. Today already there are minor collapses in software maintenance. Okay. Eventually it will bring a crisis. One time we had half of US blacked out because one small symbol incorrectly written in a C program. Okay. In the future, we already got stuck with so many legacy software, and which nobody knows what's going on in the codes. this, the society does not tell people this. Okay, they are just focused on making money. Okay, Microsoft, where Bill Gates will not allow a new foundation to come up. If it comes up, then he would, it will be tremendous threat to him. But now we're talking about this learning. We're public talking about it. Keep talking about this. Everybody got all kind of ideas to do new things. Why don't we fix the old thing first? Okay, and also to conclude for this discussion, this thing is, our topic today is about the speed of light, computing with speed of light, with deep learning. Okay, first, photon is perfect for communication. Okay, and to calculate, electron could be one of the most a very ideal system because it has spin up and spin down, and it can be used if you can manipulate it. You can use it for 0 and 1. Okay, but so far it only developed at the very elementary stage, and there's a long way to go for the CMOS system. And so first, we need photonic computing. Secondly, we need reservoir computing. In other words, there's some memory involved. Then we need to optoelectronic implementation. In other words, electronic and optics cannot connect. So you need to have this very quick conversion system. You see, then they argue that this current computing limited by heat. Okay, so that is the bottleneck for current computing, and they say if they use optoelectronic, they can create with deep learning. Deep learning is using the digital system to create an analog system. Okay, just like brain use DNA, which is digital, and build up into a human being, which is analog. Okay, so then they think it can be used to create analog hardware, which is possible. I'm not saying that I haven't done it, so they probably know what they're talking about. So basically, my feeling about all our talk is we need to fix the current societal problem. Okay, and one of the problems that's coming at us is the financial problem. We have inflation, and I was the one who tried to fix the savings and loan and the subprime law. I know what they cannot do that. Okay, now we have this computer problem, which is even worse, and I know we have real problem with complexity crisis. Okay, so my feeling is, I'm glad to have people come up with this new ideas. Okay, this talk should be sent to all these people who are doing all this new computing system, and they talk about quantum computer. Quantum computer is good. Another quantum computer is use nature's natural ability to do computation. Okay, in this universe, okay, people do not realize it. Everything, even atom is a computer. Okay, it doesn't compute, it cannot exist. Okay, so everything is a computer. It just computes. Not only computer, it's a fuzzy computer. Okay, if it's too exact, it cannot exist either. So then there's need of quantum mechanics. Okay, so computer-wise, human computer is the worst. is the most clumsy. Okay, the nature computer, they just compute, electron and spin around nucleus. It really computes. You see. So quantum computing is trying to explore this area. That is good. Okay, I'm not against that. I say, we can fit into a problem into into a natural computer system, that's great. They can do it real fast. Okay. And we need to really get into biological computer because we are biology beings. We need to understand ourselves, and the computer science and life science doesn't trust computer science doesn't trust life science. Both sides are try not to cooperate. They try to eliminate each other. I think computer science is gradually moving into life science, and it's definitely they should be the people winning. And also another comment is all this scientific approach, that experimentation. All they do is experiment. You see, this experimentation itself, why do you want to think that the law of nature does not change? Is always right. This is a religious belief, okay? You believe there is some truth, and you did one or two experiments, you find that, okay, speed of light such and such. Okay, but there's no reason. It's not by reason. It's by faith that we believe in the future speed of light will stay the same. Okay, it's not by reason. Okay, too much this by faith in all the experimentation. Now, social scientists, computer scientists, life scientists, not computer scientists, but life scientists all try to learn from science, doing experiments everywhere. Okay, my claim is that all this experiment will only get us data, which can only be used as inputs, not as outputs. Okay, inputs is something that can be compared to the past, like the speed of light. You use the speed of light, you say it's not going to change, so it's invariant. All the input must be invariant. Output is a variant. Okay. One scientist, NATO chief scientist, once told me that in science they never had such a thing as variant data. Okay, the science, like the variant data such as price, value, they have to be calculated. If you can calculate, you can no longer go to assume a price or do experiment on price. Okay, if you can calculate, I got all the inputs already, then I have enough equation, I calculate the price. How can you say that I want to use the past price to compare? You see, that is the reason for the saving loan crisis, for the subprime vote. And also for computer science should take over life science because life science deals with, let me make this point for all the young people, okay? Life science deal with programming and documentation of DNA. DNA is 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, don't use any English words. Okay, they're integers, they're digital. Okay, so once you do that, if you can, you know how to program 0, 1, 2, 3, you can create a human being. But we don't. We don't even try to set that the complete automated foundation for computer science or for life science. So that's our problem. Okay, all this fancy stuff they try to do on top of that, that's fine. Okay, they want to have fun. They want to create a prototype. That's fine. But still, we need to go back to the fundamentals. We need more thinkers. Today's thinking is not allowed because it takes too long and it will prevent people from making money. Like share, thinking too much, not enough time putting on making money. So this money-oriented society prevent people doing deep thinking, not deep learning. Deep learning is great, but deep thinking is probably more important. Okay, that's my.
Thank you. Professor Kimberly, Professor Ching actually bring many important aspects. We need more industrial reference from you. Yes.
Well, so to address one of Professor Ching's issues, back in the 80s and 90s, when I worked in the networking world, telecom world, we lived by conformances, okay, and universal adaptations. And so nothing could really come out into the world unless universally adapted. So when you're talking about, everything's updating and changing, it drives me crazy too. But I will tell you this, when we built our Lightspeed hyper, whatever you want to call it, broadband network. It's still working. We built it in '93. Still works. So can it still interface? Yeah, probably. No issues. The problem we have is everyone is out there doing their own thing rather than joining together as a team and saying, let's build this. Now, there's good and bad there. You get a lot of different ideas swirling around. Now, what we're talking about today is, to me, we used to call sci-fi, and today we can call it non-fi, right? We are actually interfacing into this world. But let's take a look at something that I kind of joke with our kids today about. They came to me the other day and they're, Mom, guess what? We have Air TV. Now, Air TV, what's this now? What's Air TV? And they were pointing at an antenna that goes to the TV, and I go, oh my God, I grew up with that. So sometimes it's a matter of just taking technology, they spin it off, give it another name, they think it's great. Actually, I thought Air TV was really great, or antenna TV was really great. But when we talk about computing truly, to kind of replace or mimic the mind. Neural computing, as we call it, or networking, is that's exactly what that is, mimicking the brain right now. I don't know that we truly interface with it, but biocomputing, we have interfaced with DNA. I've actually held some biocomputing chips. Now, when I was working in Miami a couple years ago, the labs there are just pretty phenomenal. So biocomputing, all of this as a scientist is very, I find very fascinating and very curious, but I think we just need to be very careful. How far do we really want to go into mimicking people's brains, and which human brain are we picking? We all think different, right? So which brain do we actually want, or is it just the functionality of a brain? And human brains have a conscience, whereas some other brains don't. So, but biocomputing is very, to me, the true science, sci fiction, what's going on out there. But what are they going to use it for? That's what I always ask the question. Okay, we got this quantum computing. We've had light speed processing since 90. We never used it because it costs too much money. Actually, I did not get fiber network access until a few years ago, so from 93 until now. So, let's take a look at what we're using it for, all right? Is it used to improve education? Is it used to improve medicine? Are we going to solve the world problems? Can we solve the world problems? This is what I tell people. Every time we solve one problem, we probably create 10, okay? Just think about that. We sometimes create our own problems when we solve them because we don't use risk management anymore. When we go in to apply this, I can't count the times I can go in and take a look at some of the technology that we've just rushed and get thrown out there, and I see all hazards and the problems with that because nobody actually sat down and did risk acknowledgement. And these were things we had to do when I was a full-time engineer. For when things crashed, when things didn't work right, because people relied on.
Sorry, she has internet issues. Sorry about that. Professor David Smith, what you want to add for today's discussion, especially some industrial example, what actually Professor Kim trying to give, you can share, and what is your concluding remarks for today?
Well, Sharif, thank you for letting me come back and jump into this. As you look at deep learning, particularly deep learning at the speed of light, there's related fields that go into it. There's computer science, there's mathematics, there's actually philosophy, there's neuroscience, there's psychology, there's cybernetics, there's linguistics, there is modeling, simulation that really go into it. So what you see is this approach to deep learning is one that really approaches many different disciplines in many different ways to put it. You see the different places it's working and playing, and there's a company called Like Matter, which is the company that is putting the optical chip into the same type of die socket as a CMOS chip. And so we see that going. So chip design, the ability to look at electrical engineering and photon engineering is going to play very strong in this in the future. Um, you know, to me, as I look at deep learning, Mark Anderson wrote an article back about a decade ago that it said, "Why is software eating the world?" And what we're seeing now is our whole approach to deep learning and its various incarnations. I almost would say it's eating the world today as you're looking at it, particularly when you see the realms of natural language processing, image processing, fraud detection, and autonomous activities, autonomous driving, autonomous flight, robots, and others. That is where you really have seen it go and being deeply implied. Um, the places where I think we're seeing is that it's going to be a building block as we get there. And I believe when you look at the world with a systems of systems view, like I do, many of these types of computing are going to work together. Just like today, we see them working together with approaches such as classic CMOS computing. We see it with GPU type of processing. We see it with nanomorphic processing. We see it with FPGAs and the emerging quantum computing, biological computing coming together to work together. And you use the computing approach where it best fits, like you do with federated data today, where you use the best type of database for the type of data you're using, you federate them together. I think you're going to see the same thing with these approaches to deep learning and these approaches to the computational basis of deep learning. Uh, Industries, deep learning is going to approach many industries, and I've mentioned the ones where it has the highest advantage. But you're going to see deep learning happen in retail as well. You're going to see deep learning happen in logistics, particularly for logistics optimization, as we see going forward. And this approach to deep learning at the speed of light, as the topic says, but deep learning overall, is one that is going to be ripe for entrepreneurship as well, because it's a threshold where it can be applied in many of the industries, and there's not many companies out there producing a lot of deep learning products today. So it's one that is ripe for innovation. And because much of deep learning is being done as platform as a service around, it's ripe again for emerging nations to jump in and take advantage of as well. So, Sharif, thank you so much for letting me be part of today.
Thank you, Professor Ting. What's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Okay, well, my feeling is today's topic is there's two things: deep learning and also speed of light computing. That is photonic computing. So basically, pole science is way ahead of I can say that we only do knowledge, so we're way ahead in technology versus the society. Maybe my estimation with fuzzy logic is about 4,000 years ahead. And we are so well, nobody can understand our many very complex solutions. So we're waiting for the society. So post society is waiting for the society to catch up. One of these things which caught up is deep learning. Okay, deep learning deals with neural network. We have self-generated neural network of unlimited software cell. What can be more fitting? Okay. We have a brand, we have electronic brand ready to be built, but it's very difficult to think. How do you generate cell from cell to cell and make them differentiate? Okay. You have an external file. You look at my pattern. You go from cell to you can have unlimited cell. So far, I already generate unlimited cell with different names. That's all. You see, to make them to do things that is not beyond my thinking ability actually. Maybe some people with in the future will be able to say it. And also, you see, all these things, photonic computing, this thing still deal with, they have the world just continue think science is the only knowledge. But as the founder of pole science, I think this is totally incorrect, because science deals with 5 variables. Okay, and the social science deal at least 50 variables. Life science and computer science, 500 variables. Okay, science compared to value determination is it's an order magnitude less complex than value determination. So King mentioned this idea of we got to make decisions. So we got to go back to the mathematician, Kenneth Arrow, Gerald de Boer. Okay, these are two mathematical trained people. They are the Great Depression economists. They are the product of Great Depression. They didn't do mathematics, they didn't do science, and they focused on economics because economics was the topic of the time due to the Great Depression. Okay, these are two mathematicians. One got Nobel Prize in 1972, one got Nobel Prize in 1983. Okay, they don't need to trust me. They should trust these two Nobel Prize winners. They pose the problem of value, and I solved that with their approval. And today the society does not want to accept the solution because nobody else can understand this. Nobody devoted lifetime to knowledge. So I cannot find another person to look at this unless maybe we have another Great Depression. Then we produce another couple of Arrow, the Brew. Then we have somebody who come out and say it. Actually, I gave it to Milton Friedman. He couldn't understand it. We need to go step by step. We continue to hit on science, doing science, and look at the world today. Okay, they are having robots killing humans. Okay, and they can go on. This thing can be very, very. It is. We all probably 4 of us probably all realize this can be very dangerous. If somebody who's not got really frustrated, he can, try to throw out the nuclear bomb. The way to fight is to be the first one to do it. It's so dangerous, okay? And you continue to develop more and more powerful science and without regulation, without valuation. And this is, completely irrational, getting more and more dangerous. So I'm, in Posa, I have to start to say this before we no longer exist in the northern hemisphere when they start to get
Thank you, Professor.
along with each other. You see. So I would
Yes, thank you,
advise.
Professor.
Right now I like to say something practical. Okay, Sheriff, I know you are into promoting knowledge. But I like to say something practical. I would call all this Elon Musk, everybody except Milton, except Bill Gates. I talked to him for so long. He just shut us off. Myself and Richard Stallman, he shut us off. Okay, I want to call all the other people to join force all the entrepreneurs, Elon Musk, all this Facebook, everybody join force and try to start a new foundation for software in India and in China. Okay, two nations with largest population. And start that, and Richard Stallman already went there. He start free software, which is economic freedom for software. And I'm promoting the technical freedom for software. And I'm giving away all this patent, everything away free. They can do it without a monetary barrier. So we need to start to do something, you see, not just sitting there talk. Okay, you see, and everybody say that we need to promote this. And the young people, if they got the, they want to be activists, they should just go ahead and say software is all incorrect because it's all partially automated. We're going to have big problem. Okay, and also, Kim and I probably agree that we want decision making, rational decision making before we push further the scientific progress. So we need to do this. Okay, so this is a rational approach.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Professor Kim, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
My conclusion is we do need some better decision making on what we're doing. And we need to start adapting more restrictions for universal adoption, especially for education and medicine. I mean, and, in the past, during world wars, somehow or another, even across the borders, our medicine and research didn't fight. Men make the wars, okay? Men define a lot of our rules and laws, and we need to, I think, until we grow up beyond that, we're not going to adapt to nature the way we were born to. And you know what, Ching, after this conversation, I think that that's what I've finally realized is that truly everything that we are doing is so that we can go back and adapt to nature, which is what is our most natural self-being. But we're spending all this time, we create currencies, we create society rules and laws. And what we really need to do, pure joy, what I have learned, I think we're seeking happiness and joy. And I've done some research on this through some great research. And it's truly in some of the poorest countries, people who don't have the technology, and all they have is they have a purpose, they have pride, and they utilize those two things for pleasure. And we're doing all of this stuff, utilizing all of this technology, thinking we're doing great things, when the greatest thing in this world is just adapting to nature. And I think you're right. I think we need to establish rules. I think society needs some laws. But again, all of this war that's going on, utilizing computers, this is what I always say. Every time we create something for good, is always used for bad. And my elements for science is just questions, why and why not, and we need to proceed with those two things. All the other elements are things that we define and use and get redefined and used, just like Air TV. I'm sorry, guys. When my kids came to me with this Air TV thing, I lost it. I'm like, we've just recycled technology that we used back in the, 40s, 50s, and they think it's this greatest thing in the whole world, right? Yeah. So I think that we need to do some more universal rules. I think we need to get back to some conformances and just unite. And, Sharif, thank you for this time. This platform I find very engaging, very useful. I think that we won't solve our world problems without these conversations. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor.
One comment about King's talk about nature. Okay. What we post science realize is nature is much more intelligent. Okay, human beings much more intelligent than our technology. Okay, this, I say it openly that I trust DNA intelligence more than I trust human intelligence. Okay, nature is much more intelligent than us, therefore we need to follow its pattern. In environment, in in the human body. In other words, I have reduced my age, biological age, by almost 30 years because I just follow the natural way. Okay, that is the body. Body is intelligent. All you hear, only the body heals itself. Human beings are supposed to help it. Also, the environment too. The environment, every year the weather pattern changes, and that's what clean us up every year. We produce so much pollution, and every year the weather cleans up. The nature is very intelligent until you can before you can surpass nature. We should follow the natural way. But our goal is to catch up with nature. So human being can have a position in the universe, not just totally earth-centered, human-centered talk. Okay, we need to see the whole picture. But for the time being, we're so way behind of nature, the intelligence of nature. We need to follow the natural way. We need to accept our own ignorance and also low intelligence. This is my final comment, and I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you bring this
Thank
up.
you.
Nature, this feeling of nature, it's really, normally upbringing people will fear this. Okay, all these feelings will come together and really let us admit our own position, in the universe.
Thank you. This
Thank
is
you.
really great session. I request all of our audience, please share our content with your government, corporation, and academy. I want to give a special thanks to Professor Kim, Professor Ching, Professor David Smith, and all other speakers, those who joined to this session. Thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
Okay, bye, Tim.
Bye.
Bye, Sheriff.
Bye.